back. Now, Africa has had its fair share of challenges recently, from hunger to civil unrest, natural disasters, a spate of coups, of course, and the pandemic. These are some of the issues being discussed at the 35th African Union Assembly. And to discuss this, we're joined by an esteemed panel. Radio Nigeria Editor Tersoo Zamber, a multi-award winning broadcaster from Kenya as well, Carole Gachcha, as well as Ghanaian multimedia journalist Latif Iddrisu, who has seen conflict firsthand, will join us now. Thank you very much, guys, for your time here on eNCA, and thank you for joining us. Now, first of all, the African Union having this very important meeting today. Our president is expected to address those leaders, I think, at around 2 o'clock this afternoon, South African time. But of course, the leaders from your countries as well will be there, I assume. Let me start with you, Tersoo. In Nigeria, you're quite close to these countries that have seen either attempted coups or coups taking place. In terms of your close proximity to those areas, how's the Nigeria government been responding to that?
Yes, very well. In the couple of weeks or months or so to say, we've had coups in Mali, in Burkina Faso, and perhaps other countries, especially in the West African region where Nigeria is located. Now, Nigeria has always played
All right, I think we've lost connection to Tersoo. Let's try and re-establish that connection. But in the meantime, let me go to Carole. Carole, you're in Kenya, and there has been, for instance, some concern also in countries around Kenya about attempted coups, etc. But I want to speak to you specifically about the president taking that important decision that South Africans are pushing our president to take. Uhuru Kenyatta making, the trading of some products in Kenya rather, illegal, to stop people from actually stealing state infrastructure. Tell me more about that.
I think that is a very important step that the president has taken, and Africa needs to have more of such steps to ensure that the trade is done in the fairest way possible. The president has always been trying to initiate friendship among, between Kenya and other countries. And I think that's a good step to ensure that the friendship keeps going and that economic development is grown in the whole of Africa. You know that African countries can come together and make the best decisions for all the countries, and so that Africa can do better economically and in other ways. Yes.
And I mean, Latif, let me come to you in Ghana. I remember our president actually visited Ghana not so long ago, I think towards the end of last year. And there were, of course, some very important deals that himself and his counterpart in Ghana had taken, especially when it comes to COVID-19, producing our own vaccine in Africa so that we don't have to rely so much on, the Western world. Tell me a bit more about, some of the things that they discussed, and if any of them, are you seeing any of them perhaps taking place anytime soon?
Let me start by saying congratulations to your outfit for taking up the disaster risk reduction reportage. Earlier, I saw your correspondents across the country giving reports about some of the flooding situations you have. And that is a good job. That is what disaster risk reduction journalists are up to, and this is what you would love to see all media outfits taking up in their own small spaces to sensitize their own population. Back to your question, and let me just add a little bit to what my brother from Nigeria, Tersoo, started with when you posed the question to him about the coups that have taken place within the West African sub-region. So we've had coups in a number of countries in a space of like 5 months, and it's a worrying situation. Just last week, our president, Nana Addo Akufo-Addo, hosted the ECOWAS leadership in the national capital here in Accra, where I am, to talk about the worrying trend of coup within the sub-region. It's the military are getting the appetite to take up arms, to take out constitutionally elected presidents of their various countries. And that is worrying if you sit on the outside and look at what is happening within those countries. But funny enough, within some of these countries where the coups have taken place, you have the masses supporting the military. You have the masses running on the streets, waving their nation's flag, saying, yes, they support the coup. Why? That is a very worrying trend if you sit back and analyze the situation. Let's take Burkina Faso, for instance. The military have successfully undertaken their coup because they kept complaining to the president that we do not have the required weapons, we do not have the ammunition, we do not have the arsenal to fight these armed groups that are gradually gaining roots within our country. So supply us with those. They are not just killing the military, they are killing civilians. They are maiming people, these armed groups, they are maiming people, killing civilians, killing the members of the military. And so the military kept complaining to the executive government to intervene by providing them with the necessary tools they need to work to counter these insurgent groups. That didn't happen. They got fed up, and what did they do? They took up arms and have overthrown the governments and now are in charge. If you go to some of these countries where the coups have taken place, this appears to be the trend that is running through, because insurgent armed terrorists have gained roots within these countries, and it's going to be a very difficult thing for these leaders to do if they don't listen to what the military is saying, if they don't listen to what the colonels are saying, if they don't listen to what the generals are saying. This is just an example of how things could turn up within the West African sub-region. It's a very worrying situation. So our president hosted the leaders, and they've given some timelines to the people who have taken power in Burkina Faso to return the country back to constitutional rule. And for us, that is the first step, and we hope that it will bring a lasting solution to the worrying trend of coups within the West African sub-region. Back to your major question about the collaboration between Kenya and Ghana about this whole COVID fight. I would like to extend it a bit. So COVAX has been central when it comes to the purchase of COVID-19 vaccines for the developing world. So Ghana has been part of COVAX, and we have received vaccines from the COVAX structure. So far, the African continent, I must say, has received over 1 billion doses of COVID-19 vaccine. And this all comes together, and you would appreciate that the whole brain behind the formation of the African Union has come to the fore during this COVID-19 era, so that Africans are collaborating more. And that is why we're able to secure this 1 billion doses of COVID vaccine.
All right, Latif, let me actually go back to Tersoo very quickly, because he was cut by the network. Tersoo, I hope you can still hear me out in Nigeria. I was asking you specifically about the coups that happened specifically in your Chad, for instance, Mali and Niger. I know that the one in Niger, they didn't really succeed, but the fact that there was a coup attempt there and your close proximity to those countries as Nigeria, when it happened in Mozambique and Cabo Delgado, for instance, because they are our neighbors, our president sent out the South African National Defence Force to try and assist there. Is there anything that the Nigerian government is doing in terms of trying to assist in Niger or Mali or even Chad?
Thank you very much. Yes, of course, Nigeria being a big brother in Africa, we always send missions to countries. When it happened in Mali, Nigeria, I've mentioned, Nigeria did send envoys to that country to those countries to assess the situation in those countries and perhaps come up with advice on what next to do. But the question really for me is, why are coups happening in West African countries? It goes to show how leadership has been reduced. are the civilians? Is democracy actually working in those countries? Wherever you see coups taking place, it must be that those charged with the responsibility of providing good governance are failing in their responsibilities to do so. But that is not a way of justifying coups. I think for me, it's high time we talked to our politicians that there is need for them to step up their game. They were elected by the people to govern them well. And where the military sees to it that the civilians are not doing what is expected of them, of course, they will cash in on that and find a way of coming in. And Nigeria, as a big brother, like I've said, is always ready to help those countries. I'm aware also that the ECOWAS has also suspended countries like Mali, and Nigeria is in full support of such suspension. And the idea is for such countries to return to democratic rule, which is government of the people, for the people, and the people. The military, they are not trained to lead. They're not trained to lead in a democratic setting. But like my brother from Ghana, Latif said, when the military are not, when the military are not, given the way to do their professional job, of course, they will find a way of coming into politics, assuming the role of the civilian. Take, for instance, the military is trained to protect the integrity, the national integrity, the sovereign integrity of those countries. But in Nigeria, for instance, you see the government engaging them in election. What that means is the civilian government, the police, which ought to be doing that, is rendered useless. Instead, they bring in military to be in charge of election. What that means is the civilians are empowering or are dragging the military into governance. And I think such things should be looked into.
All right, let me go back to Carole. Carole, I still want to stay on the topic before I start speaking to you about COVID-19 and how each of your countries are reacting to what is possibly a fifth wave in our country. I just want to ask you also, still on that topic of the coups, you're also not very far from your Sudan, for instance. They're actually your neighbor along with the Horn of Africa. So what is it that, is concerning for the Kenyan government, especially because Sudan has been a problem for quite a while? It's not the first time, that we hear of a coup in Sudan, and it's been a country that's actually been quite unstable for years now.
Yes, it has been unstable for a while, and it is important to note that some people have moved from Sudan to Kenya looking for refuge. And that could be the reason that the Kenyan government is really trying to ensure that there is a bit of stability in that region, so that the people in Sudan can have their own lives and that they can go on, and that the economy can be stable for once and for all. So Kenya has been trying to mediate and to provide everything that is possible to ensure that the country goes back to more normal, that their government becomes very stable, and that warring and fighting can stop in that country. So it's a big thing to watch, and that the people in Sudan can be able to continue with their lives and stop being immigrants or being refugees in other African countries. We see them in Kenya, they live with us sometimes, and it would be good to see them have stability in their country, so that they can have a stable and a stable economy for once and for all. Yes.
Let me stay with you, Carole. We know that, at this meeting by African Union, the African Union and African leaders, obviously COVID-19, along with, coups, etc., would be part of the agenda, actually top of the agenda. In our country, for instance, our COVID-19 regulations changed. We moved from having to isolate for 10 days to 7 days. If you don't have symptoms, you don't have to isolate. And of course, course, tomorrow, school children go back to class at full capacity. What we used to have is what we call a rotational timetable, but now all teachers and children will be going back to school from tomorrow full-time every day of the week. Is there anything that has changed in Kenya at the moment in terms of COVID-19 regulations, and how's your education system been affected?
Okay, the government still insists on people following the protocols, we are wearing masks and sanitizing, washing hands and things like that. The transport system had been put to half, but now the matatus are back. They carry on full capacity. That is, public transport system is carrying passengers on full capacity, which has been a very big concern to Kenyans. The schools are going on as normal, and the government is really trying to catch up to the normal timing for schools. Schools are back, to normal, But the dates and timings have not been, we are like a year behind. And the government is trying to catch up. But schools are going on full capacities and in class with their, all students back to class with their teachers. So this education system in Kenya is going on as normal, but the timings are like a year behind, and the government is really trying to catch up. There's going to be double exams this year. There are going to be exams in May for our Form 4s, which is end of secondary school, and there's going to be another in December, so that then the education system can go back to fully normal starting next year, 2023.
And of course, the children here in our country, for instance, we've been told by experts that they've lost quite a lot of learning because of COVID-19. Let me come to you, Tersoo, very quickly, and I'm running out of time before I go to Latif. In our country, the other thing when it comes to COVID-19 and the changes to the regulation, a big topic right now, and it has been for quite a while, is those mandatory vaccinations. Is Nigeria speaking about mandatory vaccinations at all?
Yes, in Nigeria, COVID-19 vaccines have been made mandatory. As a matter of fact, the federal government of Nigeria has made it compulsory for workers to get vaccinated, and it is only open presentation of your COVID-19 vaccine card that you will be allowed into your office to carry out your work. And then, even in other places, the wearing of face mask is made mandatory. In public places, if you are without face mask, you are going to be arrested and you are going to be tried by mobile courts. And they are across the country. So COVID-19 test and face mask wearing are made mandatory by the federal government. Now, another thing about COVID-19 that I want you to know is that the people are skeptical about taking the COVID-19 vaccines. Nigeria has received hundreds of millions doses of COVID-19 vaccines from donors. And I can tell you that recently, hundreds of millions of 19s were destroyed because they got expired. Nigerians did not turn out for vaccination, and so those vaccines, they got expired and they were destroyed publicly. That is an indication that Nigerians are not taking this vaccine, regardless of the fact that the federal government has made it mandatory for Nigerians to get vaccinated. And it is open presentation of vaccines card that one can get into offices. And for the students, it is upon wearing of face mask that you are allowed into the school. Now, another measure the federal government has come out with to accelerate education amid COVID-19 is the launching of e-learning. What that means is you can sit at home and through the link, through the website designed by the federal government, you can get educated, not necessarily going to the classroom, not necessarily accessing schools before you can get learning. The e-learning platform is for you to sit at home and then get yourself educated.
All right, thank you very much, Tersoo. Let's go to Latif. On that note, Latif, as I was saying to Tersoo, we have, this mandatory vaccination that is a hot topic. Some universities in our country have actually implemented that, and students are told to learn from home if they don't want to get vaccinated instead of coming to school. But you see, in our country, we are still very unequal in South Africa, and there's people who don't have access to that infrastructure that can give them the opportunity to learn from home. For instance, your Wi-Fi is not clear and proper in many parts of our country. So tell me a little bit about Ghana, what's happening there with the mandatory vaccinations, as well as whether or not there's been some COVID-19 changes in your country. Protocol changes, that is.
So, yeah, thank you. So just like Tersoo mentioned earlier, in Ghana, there is no mandatory vaccination. But just a couple of weeks ago, the health ministry came up with a directive that if you want to access a public facility, then you need to go there with your COVID-19 card to show that, yes, indeed, you've been inoculated. But we do not have mandatory vaccination policy in the country as we speak. Maybe going forward that will come to the fore, but now we do not have a mandatory COVID-19 vaccine. On the educational front, Tersoo just mentioned about e-learning. We had our e-learning months ago. As we speak in Ghana, schools have reopened fully, and every student is back in the classroom, full capacity. Teachers are having physical contact with their pupils. That wasn't the case when we had COVID-19 ravaging across the globe. Today in Ghana, that has changed. We are back in the classroom, and
Latif,
teachers are having physical contact with their pupils, if you like.
Latif, I'm so sorry. I'm sure you're going to say I'm being a little unfair to you, but unfortunately I have to move on because we do have to move to another big story that's happening here in South Africa. We're about to find out probably very soon who our Chief Justice will be here in the country. But thank you very much for your time, and I'm looking forward to speaking to you again. That was Tersoo Zamber, a journalist from Nigeria, Carole Gachcha from Kenya, and Latif Iddrisu from Ghana. Thank you very much for your time.